That's how I feel like people should be online. Like, how are you going to tell share your mom's medical history with us if it's not prevalent to you in your life and your trauma?
Yeah.
I shouldn't know that your mom has IBS.
Why do I know your mom has IBS?
Why do I know that?
Thanks for your concern.
Welcome back, everybody, to Thanks for Your Concern. You're here with Ella.
And I'm Berenice.
Okay, you guys, I might cut this, I might not, but Berenice just said that sparkling water is like her nicotine patches for caffeine.
Okay.
Girl, I've been trying to cut back on caffeine, but I realized that, like, I'm unmedicated and, like, there is science out there that caffeine really helps with neurodivergent people.
Is it that, or am I just very, very dependent on it? Listen, I went on a little bit of like a spiral with my caffeine intake last summer, and I feel like I'm still struggling with that. So I'm trying to live a healthier lifestyle. I heard meditating really helps. I'm really trying to get back on the wagon, okay? On the wagon of health. I started going back to the gym last week, and when I was at the airport, I picked up that book you suggested.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
Oh my god, why is it so juicy and good? I need a good book to like get back into reading, because like sometimes you're like off of it, and you just you gotta get in it. Oh my god, what's the name of this book? Why
It's called
am I blinking?
Yellowface.
Yes,
By
Yellowface.
R.K. Kwan.
Great read, has gotten me back into reading. I like sat on that airplane and I was like, so I definitely recommend that. My second thing is my 2-liter sparkling water that I consume almost daily to not drink a second cup of coffee.
Girl, I love it. I love your strength. I love everything. What makes me laugh about it is that, because when you talk about nicotine patches, I had like a family member that's like, I'm getting off of the vape and back on cigarettes. And because she was just like, dude, like the vape's too much. I can't, because you can vape anywhere all the time. Like, I went from having like a cheeky little cigarette after a night out to like constantly being on this vape. And I was like, girl, tale as old as time. Like, it's a tricky little thing. So, this is your permission to go back to cigarettes. I mean, you're just
do what you need to do.
If you went from like 2 cigarettes a week to constantly being on the vape, like maybe you got to go back to cigarettes.
Listen, we don't know what all the lasting effects of vapes yet. So cigarettes could, in the long term, be better. Not that we're promoting cigarette use, okay?
I'm just being a cheeky.
They're gonna flag us. They're gonna flag us. No, not that either. If it gets you less on the nicotine spiral, then maybe that's your journey.
Baby girl, how was Miami week?
It was so fun.
Yay.
I went in it with like no expectations, because it was just the first time I went. I was single, ready to party, ready to mingle, like woo. And then this time I like went with like a significant other and a group of people, so it's just really different vibes. And I don't like to put expectations or try to recreate anything, just because then you're let down. I'm also like 2 years older, and I just like can't hang like I used to, nor do I really want to. So they were like, you want to do like 7 a.m. space tickets? I'm like, not really. That is not what I'm going to do. So I dipped out a little earlier just to let people do their own thing. And that's the other thing, right? Like, I am not one to sign up myself for something that I know I'm going to have a bad time at. Like, if I can't support you on your journey because you're so excited to do this, I'm going to sit it out and let you rock. You got a buddy or two? Perfect. You guys are going to have a great time without me. FOMO gone. Cured.
Honestly, that's really good. And that's why, like, you need to have... I think that more people should do that, because why are you going to bring the vibe down because you chose as an adult to go do something that you didn't want to do? Of course, the other person doesn't know you don't want to do it,
Yeah. So I really let people on their journeys. I was just like, like that sounds super fun, but I can't participate this time. So instead, a couple of days, I like ran around Miami and went to like Little Havana and went and listened to salsa and like did one of the days, I think we went to like, we did the space, but like the earlier version, and it was like Afro House. So, and right around South Beach at nighttime and like all these like cute little spots. So I had a really good kind of like whole experience of Miami that wasn't just like staying up till 3 p.m. the next day and doing that over and over. So I enjoyed my time there. It was perfect. I think I dipped in early, got out early, so set.
Love it. Well, shout out to your little Miami trip. I went to I have an exciting update. All right.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
finally got one of my DJ white whales. And what I mean by that is this is a DJ I've been wanting to see for
Okay.
over 10 years.
Who?
Father Funk. I'm
Okay.
sure you've heard his mix because me and our friend Jackson would pregame to his Shyamalan set a lot in college.
Okay.
And he's just a European DJ. He just stays in fucking Europe. He comes to the States like a couple times, but every single time we've never been at the same city at the same time, and I've never had enough money to travel. Finally saw him. It was at one of my favorite venues, which is Nectar Lounge, because it's like, I don't know, maybe 100 people, like very intimate. I said hello. We were next to each other at the bar. I was like, hi.
Great set. Love your stuff. Been
Love
a fan for a while.
Kisses, smooches. But it was really, really fun. I went with our friend Kylie, and it was so fun. We had a great, grand old time. And the person that also opened was Wildebeest, which they have trumpet, trombone, and flute.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys know I love a little live instrumental at a
action
DJ set. Like, that's literally the shit I live for, baby. So it was really fun to get like back into the community, babes. It was really fun.
I do love that. Any live thing, honestly, brings it up back to the back to the top, as Miss Sharpay Evans would say. We ended up at like a salsa thing, but it was live music, and I was like, I need to go to Cuba. The situation in Cuba is really sad, and it's actually maybe I don't need to go to Cuba, but like culture wise and live music wise, I feel like that'd be the toppity top experience.
I mean, you guys know I love live music, and I feel like the reason why, like, I don't know, there's just something about going to see a new musician that you've really wanted to see for a long time that just like really hits the spot.
Yeah. I also recommend like a jazz club. Jazz clubs have been hitting the spot. You just appreciate things a little differently, you know?
It's a different vibe.
Yeah, it is a different vibe. And you don't have to be like roaming around with like thousands of people like touching you. And we're getting older. We're getting older.
I mean, that's the thing is that like sometimes I feel like I conflated like me not liking to rave with me not wanting to be tit to tit with like 10,000 people.
I think my journey is over. I was at a John Summit show on Wednesday night, and I tend to stray away from John Summit shows. No beef to him. I like his music, okay? But it just oversold, like he always oversold show. And it's like, honestly, sometimes the worst men I've ever met in my life. Okay. Like, these fanboys are fanboys. And who am I to stop them from their journey of loving John Summit to the most of their capabilities? But a lot of them are like shirtless, a little bit rude, and like on something, right? So, like, I am like taller than me. So I'm just being real. I'm just being real here. And that's just not an enjoyable experience for me. So I went with my little boyfriend, all right? And he was like really excited to see John Summit, and he really wanted to be at this specific spot. Mind you, we get to this spot an hour before John Summit. So like 10 minutes before John Summit, I'm like, I'm going to leave you here. I'm going to go over there. Like, I can't be here touching bodies with a sweaty man's back. I can't see anything.
Oh my God.
I hate it here. I'm losing air by the second. And I don't think I want to be pushed for, like people were saying like, oh, this isn't even that bad. Just wait until he gets on. And I'm like, that's literally my worst nightmare.
Bro, so one time I was at a rave with my cousin, and my cousin's like, 5'11", like, maybe I'm being kind there, but he's a tall man, right? He like, I don't know why, he just like looks down to me, and then he like gets on his, like basically crouches down to see at eye level what I'm seeing. And he was like, oh, I totally get why you don't want to be up in the front, right? Like when you're at this eyesight. And he was like, ever since then, like we stand in the back and he's like chill about it because he's like, I literally had no idea like what your view was. Like you literally are just looking at some like sweaty dude's back. And I'm like, yes, literally, that's all I see.
Melt it back right here.
Oh, nasty, dude.
So not for me, that journey.
All right. What a fun update. Thank you. If you survived Miami Music Week, tell us your stories.
Please. But today we do have a funsies episode. As social media becomes bigger on the spectrum, and here we love to yap on this podcast, I do believe there's some things you should, keep private.
Maybe you should keep some secrets.
We're bringing back secrets. Let's get it.
Bringing back secrets. Honestly, I feel like this is coming from someone who used to be a chronic oversharer, and I've learned a thing or two.
Literally, I was just thinking about like the random man on the Q train that just knows my entire lore after like a night out at 5 a.m. I'm upset. I'm drunk on the train. He's asking me questions. I'm telling him all of my password questions. Yeah,
yeah.
What's your password? He could answer all of them. 10 minutes on the train.
And here's the thing is that like I used to be like, if someone asked me something, I was like, I believe in truth and vulnerability. And so you'd be like, how are you? And I'm like, I'm kind of worried about my relationship with my mother. Let me tell you, like, not everyone needs to know that, even if that's the truth. And like, there's just some things that you should, like, I'm not saying being a fucking completely closed book, but just being selective of what you're sharing with who before someone has earned your trust.
I agree. Sometimes I feel like I would bring up things that maybe also could have like killed the vibe per se. Like, is this the right time for this conversation about police brutality? Like, maybe not. Maybe that's something I should warm into rather than like that's like can you tell me a story about this scar? And now I've just learned to say it's a story for another time.
Right. And like honestly, it's because people don't know what they're asking really. Like they don't realize how loaded of a question something is. And so like I kind of took it as like they want to know the tea, but like honestly they don't. Like they don't want, not everyone wants to know the tea, but they don't know that it's tea, hence why they're asking. They don't think they're asking a deeply personal question.
No. They think like, oh, I just ran around and accidentally like spilled something on myself, or it's not that deep, but you're like, oh, that's like one emotional wound, like yes, it hurt, the physical hurt, but the emotional pain lingers. Yeah, they don't want to know. They don't want to know.
And also, it's like, I feel like I used to think that it was like my superpower to tell strangers all my business, but like it actually, like if I'm reflecting and being a little self-aware, it does come off a little cuckoo bananas. People tend to keep secrets, or not even secrets, like people tend to just know, like, I don't know you, so like I don't expect to know everything about you right away. So, like ease people into vulnerability.
Yeah, I think there's like whenever I see someone overshare, sometimes I'm like, oh, they just haven't dealt with this yet. Because that's how I used to do it, right? Like I would tell a story coming from a place of hurt rather than a place of like reflection. And that's why it was like so loaded and detailed, and I would tell it to anybody. And when I have like processed something and like if somebody asks me, now I'm able to like kind of choose how I want to phrase that and in the context that I want to share it in. I do believe sharing some things and coming forward as vulnerable does encourage other people to be vulnerable with you though. I see that all the time when people like reach out to me that even I meet from TikTok. Like they feel like they know me because I do share things on TikTok. So they come across as like I'm their friend. And I'm like, well, we can be friends. It's just you do know things about me, and I think that's why this is the vibe. So there are some things that I think can be beneficial to share, but maybe the needy, greedy, traumatic parts we leave behind.
Yes, and also just like keeping in check like that vulnerability is being reciprocated, because I forget what dating show it was on, but this girl was like really mad at this guy that she was dating on, like, I don't know, it's like Love is Blind. It was one of those, where it was like she was like, "Oh, like, you know everything about me, and like you know this, you know this, you know this, and like how could you do this to me?" And the guy was like, "Well, I never asked you about that. Like, you just kind of told me." And I just thought that was so funny because because I've had a very similar experience where it's like, "But you like, how could you do this knowing X, Y, and Z?" It's like, "Well, you just told me that. Like, I didn't even ask you about that." And it's like you
Yeah.
could kind of clue in that if they're not like reciprocating back with information, that like maybe you just need to like pump the brakes a little bit.
Until you get on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I think this is a great way to figure out if someone's into you or not and ready to be vulnerable in a relationship. If they don't get deep about the things that are going on in their lives, they are not ready for a deep emotional connection. That's just not what they want to do with you.
Or with anyone. Some people just might not get there and maybe not take it personal, but you know, some people aren't ready to kiki about everything.
That's very true. Along with like significant others, I think something you should keep to yourself is how you feel about your significant other as you're going through something. Just be careful like who you tell those things to because they will always remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I think that now I see that in other people like when someone's venting to me about their partner, I very much so take it as like okay, they're just venting. They haven't processed this information yet and it's their relationship, you know, because obviously me as your friend, I hear your boyfriend said something fucked up to you. He's public enemy number one, you know? I'm like, I'll see you
Yeah.
outside. I don't even care the context of that. Like, we're outside. And you may want to keep that relationship, and now I hate him.
Babes, you know, I've done this personally, you know, and I also feel like it's not even like I think there's a difference between like keeping secrets. I don't think you should keep secrets from your friends, but I do think you should give yourself a little bit of time before
Yeah.
you vent because I guess at least for me, when I'm like really high emotion, I might be like I'm a chronic overthinker. My mind goes a mile a minute and I might draw the wrong conclusions when I'm like amped up.
Yeah.
So it's good to like cool down and think about it and be like, are you drawing an incorrect conclusion because you're upset? Or is this like what's happening and you should like tell someone about it to get their opinion, you know?
I always feel like when somebody's mostly when they're quiet and they start sharing fucked up shit, I'm like, it's because they want out. And then like that's when I know I'm like, okay, I'm gonna maybe phrase back the things that you said to me in a way that like they're not personal to you. I think one time I had a friend, you know, I overheard their boyfriend just like basically calling them a bitch, right? And I'm like, you know, it really makes me sad to hear this language like somebody referring to you as that. And I was like, if you were in my position and you heard someone talk to me like that, how would you feel? And they were like, no, I would like be upset and I would say this and this and this. And I'm like, you know, then why aren't you doing that for you? And those are like, I guess that's kind of the other way that you can phrase that. But I always see like towards the end of someone's relationship is when they start yapping. Like, because it's either they don't want to go back or they're ready to turn everyone against them so they don't go back. You know what I mean? Like I feel like there's
this time.
I would still say that sometimes I get a little confused by that because I've had a few like girls reach out like personally to kind of tell me like, oh my boyfriend was abusive, whatever. And I'm like, oh my god, like obviously I'm always like, a girl tells me something, I believe it. I 100% okay, got it. Like, what do you need? And then they go back to those people, and I'm like, wait, wait a minute. Do you need help? Like, do you need blink twice if you need help, girl? Because now you're like back in love in this relationship, and now I'm confused. I had a girl make like an entire group on Instagram, right? And like reach out on terms like, I want to create this support group with the rave community in New York because these men are out of control, which I agree. I 100% agree, okay? They're liars. But that being said, I was like, I don't know about this one. But really the tea was that she wanted to talk about like her ex-boyfriend and the things he'd done to her. So, but this was like 100 people in this group, okay? So she reached out to 100 women and gathered us in the sake of sisterhood to turn against men and then told us about this lore. and including the fact that like her ex-boyfriend took videos of like women and men under the bathroom stalls at shows. Like,
Oh my god.
right? Yeah. So
Ew.
me, I'm like, he's sick. Like, are you
Yeah.
okay? Like, how did you just come across this information? You know? I shit you not, like a month, 2 months later, she's posting with this man, and I'm like, are you okay? And two, I'm a little confused.
Oh, this is like a real like this is a tale as old as time, but it makes me I mean, it just makes me sad, I think, because and this is really common with women because I think men don't share their emotions. So I'm not saying it doesn't happen with men, but like I don't think men tell all their friends like every single thing that's bad about their girlfriend and then go back to them. I'm not sure though. You know, you can weigh in. But that's crazy town and it'll probably take a while. Like sometimes it'll take people 5, 10 years. Sometimes they never figure it out. But yeah, that is cuckoo bananas.
With what you're sharing with others, there's a lot to unpack.
Okay, and like what you're sharing with others, honestly, like this is kind of related, but I really don't think you should be sharing secrets online that aren't your secrets. Like I've seen people kind of drag their like parents and siblings, and I'm like, this only pertains to you because this is your parent, but this is like not your business, you know?
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had some talks with my parents because obviously as like we share things on this podcast, it's also like things about that include them, but they're through
Mhm.
my lens, and they're like, "Well, that's not really my truth." And I'm like, "Then you're welcome to start your own podcast." You know, like there's certain things that do involve it. One being the whole thing about like growing up undocumented. It's like, well, you know, you're like sharing that. We were also undocumented, and I was like, yeah, but I was a child and I didn't choose that. So this is kind of the. Sorry about it. Here's the bottom line: I'm not someone you should tell a secret to. I'm a yapper. I genuinely do not want to know. I want to live in ignorance because if you tell me something that shouldn't be public, I can't. I just yap, and I truly don't want to know your secret. If you don't want the public to know it, I don't want it.
Well, where's the art of gossip? Okay, because I feel like a lot of people. Well, here's the thing: is I think that sometimes there is hot tea. Gossip is a vehicle for connection, and I believe that if you can gossip about, like for me, you can leave out names. Like I on this podcast sometimes talk about my parents. And I don't say my mom, my dad, because, it is kind of personal. I don't want to out them on some shit. So I'll just say, like, an adult in my family to give them a little bit of anonymity. I was, like, kind of teasing one of my friends because my friend was, like, telling me some tea. And it was like, oh, yeah, like, that was, like, oh, Patrick from school. And I was like, first of all, you don't need to name Patrick because I don't know Patrick. I'll never know Patrick. So like when you're telling a story and you're trying to spill some tea, just like say my friend, okay? Make it like a little anonymous. Like that's the art of gossip is when you tell someone something else, but you don't give everyone the identifying details. So if you met that person, you would never know. That's how I feel like people should be online. Like how are you going to tell share your mom's medical history with us if it's not prevalent to you in your life and your trauma?
Yeah.
I shouldn't know that your mom has IBS.
Why do I know your mom has IBS?
Why do I know that? Why are you posting on the internet your mom's business like that? Did you get permission to post that she has IBS? Maybe she doesn't want everyone to know that she shits herself.
Yeah, I agree, and this carries over with work. I had like a supervisors really overshare about her life and ask nothing about ours. So it was like it was like I could tell you her best friend's name and her best friend's boyfriend's name. Why do I know that? Why do I know where they are? Why do I know where my boss's best friend is vacationing at this weekend? Like, maybe that was too much oversharing.
I honestly think there is an art to vulnerability at work. So, me, I'm not gonna tell you shit, okay? Because I really just think that I don't know, like there's like a kind of a weird line where you are dealing with a corporation and not a person. And so I feel like you should like protect yourself legally by undersharing. You know what I'm saying? Like if you plan to work remotely from Mexico for 2 weeks, I honestly think you should keep that to yourself. No one needs to know that, right? But I think that connection is important for people to feel like they want to keep you around. So what do? This is just me. I have work safe activities that I share with people. One thing I don't share, I don't talk about EDM and raving because it has a negative connotation, unfortunately. Anytime I go to a jazz club, I go to some jazz music, some old funk music, I talk about that, right? Movies, I talk about movies. That's a good one. Pets, everyone loves talking about pets. I take my dog different places just so I can share about that, with my coworkers on Monday. What did you do this weekend? I took my dog here. Okay. I don't talk about how I went to an EDM rave show. That's mostly for people who are on heavy psychedelics. Okay. That's not what I'm sharing. That's not
That's
necessary.
not what I'm doing. That's not what I'm doing.
That's not what I'm sharing. If you might go to something and call out sick on Monday, it does not make sense for you to tell your friends, like, hey, so this weekend I'm gonna fucking go on a 24-hour rave. Maybe don't expect me on Monday. Don't do that, okay? Don't say anything and then on Monday call out sick because you got a COVID. Because people think that, like, calling into work sick is, like, totally fine. But if they know it's because you were fucking doing devious activities and being a feral rat, they are less accepting of it.
I think that there's no bigger space for the evil eye than at work. I don't think it's intentional, but like it's real, okay? Because low key, everyone at work hates their fucking life. Like, be for real. Like, no one wants to be there, okay? If you want to be there, that's amazing. But like, I haven't met one single person that's like not looking forward to like their actual life outside of there. So when you come in a little too chipper about the amazing things in your life, and then you take 4 days off and take a extra sick day, and someone has to pick up your slack, even though those are your days. There's just corporations don't actually have the structure for you to take those. People get a little upset. Even if outside of work, they're lovely people. In work, they may be throwing you shade every time they see you. Okay? So I am also very selective at what I like to share with work. I do a little more though. I do put out some feelers to figure out who like my people are here and there and see who kind of like reciprocates the vibe. And I've made some really close friends at work from that. But you do have to kind of like feel out the vibe. If not, I'm not your friend. I don't want to know. I'm not going to tell you anything. Like, I don't trust you that you're not about to send me some shade from the background, your sister. I also don't like to share my other talents at work. If you find out, that's cool. But like now it just also became part-time designer at here. I don't get paid for that. I can't do that. Like, you know what I mean? You want my opinion based on that? That costs more money. That's a lot of brain power, okay? I think that at work, specifically with other things that I keep to myself are my like weekend plans whenever they ask me like, how was your weekend? My weekend is always so short but so relaxing. I am always well rested at work, unless I'm sick. And sick has everything to do with my sinus issues from my sorority and nothing to do with my lifestyle.
Snaps to that, because I just feel like it's better to be safe than sorry. And there's so many examples of people oversharing and getting them into hot water because, dude, those company policies can be long and you just might have breezed over something and you got caught up doing something. Like, I don't know. I just think you should be careful. And there's lots of ways you can be vulnerable without putting yourself at risk. And also, like, at the end of the day, babes, maybe it's because I've also been laid off. Like, maybe it's something that was the best thing that ever happened to me is getting laid off of my first job, is because now you just really are like, well, you gotta be these people could be gone the next day and they're like, we're sorry to see you go, but they tell you in like a 5-minute Zoom call with 200 other people.
Yeah, if you want to do connection at work, I recommend asking people about what they like and then talk about that. People like talking about the things they like.
Talk about things they like, cooking. There's so many things where you can still share and kiki and people get to know people without giving too much away.
Another thing I think you should keep to yourself, especially in a relationship, maybe I fall a little bit into the toxic Latina trope. I don't want to know about your ex. I just don't care. Ignorance is bliss over here. You had a beautiful memory here with your ex. Now this is you just tarnish that memory here for me, okay? Now, they're in the room with me here, and I didn't want to know that. Keep it to yourself.
I love that. I honestly just think in relationships, I feel like, they're going to ask what they want to know about you. Of course, feel free to share some stuff, but I think especially from things from the past, I would just err on this side of caution of just like, keep your past relationships to yourself. You don't really need to know. If they don't ask, they don't need to know,
If it's something you learn in a relationship, don't pinpoint it to one specific ex. Just say, like, in a past relationship, an ex-partner, etc. Okay? I don't
Yeah.
need to know everything you learned with that one person, that one experience that always gets brought up. Because now there's another person in our relationship. Like,
Mhm.
yeah.
Word.
Yeah.
Or
It's
you
not
could just
nice.
say in the past too. You don't even need to be specific. What happened to
I
sharing
agree.
things without specificity? Ooh, that's gonna be a hard one. Specificity. Like just share I've learned in my life X, Y, and Z. I don't know that you need to be like, I had this gorgeous girlfriend and she taught me this. No, get the fuck out of here. You know how I caught up my boyfriend and I was like, this is a funny one. He was like, oh, have you ever had Valentina on Doritos? And I was like, what Latina woman taught you that? And he was like, how'd you know? And I was like, the fuck? Who do you think? You think you discovered Valentina on Doritos, bitch?
Have you met me? That's all I ate in college.
Yeah, the fuck? I know where I learned about Valentina on Doritos, bitch. Come on, be fucking for real. Anyways,
Yeah.
that was really funny. I have one last one, is I really think that we need to keep secrets because of stranger danger. Like, the internet is a spooky, kooky spooky place. And like when you're in an Uber, you don't need to tell that person that you're going home alone. When you're on the internet, you don't need to tell people when you're going on vacation and they know exactly like what your house looks like and you've shown off all your nice shit. That's a bad idea. You'd be so surprised what internet sleuths can find out about you. So err on the side of caution, keep secrets, talk about a vacation after you've gone on it, shit like that.
Even after you've gone on it, just I guess be careful who you share your information with. I, grew up with a dad from Mexico City, so he was always like, don't talk about, even in Mexico City, they're like, don't say where you're from, just like keep things very tight, especially with like cab drivers. And I was in a cab in Mexico City going to EDC, so it was like the longest ride ever. And I got a taxi, like our Uber driver, that he was a yapper, right? So he was telling me literally his lore. And at one point, he was like, I used to be really successful and whatever, and then I got kidnapped, and like I don't really like know how that happened. And I was like, I literally in that moment I thought, sir, I've been in this car with you for an hour and a half. I could tell you where you're like where all your daughters go to school, where you have vacation, like how much money you used to make. Like this is why, because you're sharing information with a stranger in the back of your car. Like, you know what I mean? So err on the side of caution. You never know who you're saying things to, especially if you don't know them. And yeah, even with posting on social media, I always post after I leave.
Yeah. No, it's obviously like you think that like only famous people are vulnerable because it's like, oh, who wants to cause harm to little you? But most criminals are like crimes of opportunity, right? Like, so just be careful. And like the last, I don't know, this is just kind of a funny story related to this. So yesterday I was like out shopping and this older man, like legit, out of nowhere was telling me his daughter's infertility issues, and I just thought it was so funny. I was literally gagged because he was like telling me his daughter's infertility. He's like, I'm a grandpa, but my daughter's had severe infertility issues, but she just had a kid, so we're so excited about it. But the kid's a little bit delayed, developmentally delayed, and he was literally giving me a rundown of this baby's fucking medical history. And so maybe you gotta like talk to your parents to tighten up ship and be careful of what they're make sure your parents are never giving out personal information. Make sure that they know what scams are common. You have to tell your parents about the common scams, like especially with AI. My freaking grandma, this is so sad. Like, God rest her soul. Someone called her and said, hey, your grandson is in the hospital. We need you to wire us money. And then had like an AI voice of my cousin. Can you believe that?
Oh, that's like so known in Mexico. That's like the biggest scam ever over there. and you have to like hang up the phone and you have to call and make sure like your actual cousin or whatever is cool. And yeah.
So, when it comes to secrets, make sure that your parents know never to give out your social security number over the phone if they have that information. Because my parents do, so you got to keep up that lock and key. Like, hey, I want you to forget my social security number because I don't want you giving it out over the phone.
No one needs to know that.
No one needs to know.
They mean well though. Alrighty. Well, maybe after this you will take more secrets to the grave, which I plan on doing. Except just my own. I really don't want to know your secrets. I don't want to know.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm probably the worst person about keeping secrets. Like, this is like episode 237. So I'm sure you could piece together my whole fucking life story. So,
Yeah.
Love that.
It's gonna get out.
All right, you guys. Thanks so much for listening this week. This has been really fun. I liked this topic. Please make sure that you like, subscribe, tell a friend about this, and you can follow us on social media. Thanks the number for your concern. And I'm at Ella L. Tudor.
I'm at Bernice Diaz M.
We love you. We'll see you next week. Bye.